Perro, start digging.
Okay.
If, like us, you're a major fan of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish,
Can I get your autograph?
you're gonna want to hear about the movie's biggest secrets.
Yes.
Things that you might not have picked up on, like a joke about Cat's 9 lives while Puss is sulking in a bar, or the fact that the movie has a surprisingly high body count for a children's story. There is a lot there, including some possible Shrek 5 info if you look hard enough. Number 1. Besides watching Puss in Boots' 8 deaths, there's also an interesting moment that foreshadows his 9th. When the wolf tells Puss his true identity, the story's hero is drinking out of a cup, with 8 empty cups on the table. This symbolizes the fact that Puss is on his 9th life, and the wolf is here to take his final one away from him. Number 2. Sure, they say cats have 9 lives, but while this whole film is based on a joke about cats, one quick moment in Puss in Boots: The Last Wish was based on a fact about cats that you probably didn't know. When he's getting his temperature taken, Puss tells the doctor that he runs hot. The joke here is that he actually does, in comparison to humans, that is. The normal body temperature of cats falls somewhere between 99.5 to 102.5 degrees Fahrenheit, which is definitely a fever for us humans. Number 3. Puss in Boots may run hotter than humans, but he apparently can't outrun a dog. In a flashback to Puss in Boots losing one of his lives, it happens because he cheats in a game of poker against dogs. This scene is, of course, a joke based on Cassius Marcellus Coolidge's famous dogs playing poker painting. Number 4. Speaking of yikes, let's talk about death, baby. It's pretty surprising when the wolf reveals that he is actually literally deaf, but you may not have been so surprised if you were able to catch all the subtle signs. First of all, the wolf wears a black hood and carries a sickle, and while it may have seemed like this was just because he was creepy, in retrospect, it's clearly Grim Reaper inspired. There's also, of course, the skull-shaped patch he has on his face. In fact, skulls often show up around the wolf in various ways before he announces his true identity. Did you notice that on the title cards for each of Puss's 8 deaths, the wolf appears in the border of the screen? There are also some more complex hints, like when the wolf puts coins over his eyes. This was done at funerals in ancient Greece. Lastly, at the bar, when Puss declares that he laughs in the face of death, the wolf scratches the bar in anger. Sounds like the idea of Puss in Boots making fun of death hit a little close to home for the wolf. Strange? Wonder why? Alright, it's because he is death. Number 5. While death is a character in this film, it's also a surprisingly relentless force. The Puss in Boots franchise is, of course, a family-friendly film, and we don't typically see so many characters lose their lives in a PG movie. The creators of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, however, clearly laugh in the face of not including death in their movie. There are 23 moments in the film where a character meets their maker, which is pretty high. Of course, that's including the 8 times we see Puss in Boots lose his life. Number 6. Did you catch Pinocchio's cameo? Folks are fleeing from Big Jack Horner's performance to see a one-man puppet show by none other than Pinocchio himself. This is surely meant to be one of the performances that Pinocchio does in his own story, which may mean that these 2 films overlap on the timeline. Number 7. So how does the film overlap with Shrek on the timeline? Well, we may be able to tell by one particular cameo. The Wicked Witch makes a sneaky appearance in the movie that leaves us questioning how this may be related to her role in the Shrek franchise. The Wicked Witch is in the waiting room when Puss in Boots is leaving the doctor's office. Number 8. This brings us to an important question. What is going to happen in the rest of the Shrek franchise? Puss in Boots: The Last Wish may have given us some hints. The flashbacks to one of Puss in Boots' deaths involves Gingy. Does this mean that Puss in Boots: The Last Wish happens after the next movie in the Shrek franchise? It's certainly possible, but we just hope nothing bad happens to everyone's favorite gingerbread man. Number 9.
While we don't have a release date, it's been confirmed that Shrek 5 is coming. It would be interesting if the next installment in the Shrek franchise were to coincide with the story that's being told in Puss in Boots.
And we have reason to believe that this may happen, and the reason why lies in the final moment in Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. At the end of the movie, they're headed to far, far away, which may mean Shrek 5 will pick up where this movie left off. Needless to say, we're pretty excited about that possibility. Number 10. Who doesn't love Jimmy Stewart? Well, apparently no one, and that includes the minds behind Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. In the film, the ethical bug is basically the angel on Jack Horner's shoulder. The ethical bug was the first acting credit for Kevin McCann, who is actually a DreamWorks production supervisor. Yet, even though you haven't heard Kevin McCann as the voice of a character before, there's a good chance that you recognized his voice.
Oh my word, it's the Noble Phoenix.
McCann clearly modeled the ethical bug's voice after actor Jimmy Stewart.
Oh,
what do you mean? Nobody's trying to steal anybody's girl.
And this choice has many layers. First, it's a nod to the name of another guidance-giving insect, Jiminy Cricket in Disney's Pinocchio. While this may be the obvious symbolic reason for a Jimmy Stewart-inspired bug, the other reason has to do with a beloved holiday movie. Just like Jack Horner, Jimmy Stewart's classic character George Bailey also has a guardian angel in the film It's a Wonderful Life. And now, from a man with a guardian bug to the little girl with bears for parents. Number 11. Did you catch the little details which prove that Goldilocks was in fact raised by bears? First, the oversized space buns that Goldilocks always styles her hair into are kind of reminiscent of bear ears. It certainly makes her fit in more with her furry family than a ponytail would. Besides the ears, Goldilocks has quite a few other things that make her fit in perfectly with her family. Her blue eyes and necklace look like her brother's, and her mismatched earrings are like her mom's. She also ends up with 2 scars above her left eye, which matches with Papa Bear's missing left eye. Whether she realizes it or not, it's easy to see that Goldilocks fits in with her bear family. And there's actually a hidden message that proves it. Number 12. Goldilocks wants to find out where her true family is, but the truth is right in front of her all along. You just have to be an expert at cracking codes to notice it. To find the location of her true family, you need to look at the first letter of each line in the fairy tale she loves. The secret message spells, "You already have it." That's pretty cute stuff.
She's not my sister. She's a fugitive orphan. Ow!
She is your sister.
Luckily, unlike Goldie, you don't need to crack a code to know where you belong. We'll just tell you. You should be joining our animation-loving family by liking and subscribing to the Things Animated for lots more videos like this one. From one thing that's so magical it's hard to believe it exists to another. Number 13. We're talking about hornless unicorns. In this case, though, it's not actually horses. It's unicorns that have been dehorned. When Big Jack Horner is getting his baker's dozen together, the horses that are seen pulling their carriage are actually unicorns that have had their horns cut off. Yikes. Number 14. Did you catch the unexpected X-Men crossover? The Last Wish has a definite parallel with The Last Stand. Both of these films are about 2 heroic characters who manage to cheat death plenty of times. We're talking about Puss in Boots and Wolverine, of course. Both heroes embark on a western road trip after growing some impressive facial hair with their pals by their sides. If those weren't enough similarities, both characters have to come to terms with their own mortality in the end when they engage in a battle with a tough opponent. We know we're not alone in wanting to see these two team up. It's double the claws. Number 15. No one could have expected a crossover between Puss in Boots: The Last Wish and X-Men: The Last Stand. But there's a parallel to a movie that might be even weirder. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish includes a surprise reference to a very well-known and frequently memed moment in The Wicker Man.
Not the bees! Not the bees!
This choice is made all the more interesting by the fact that Nicolas Cage actually originally turned down the role of Shrek. Could this be a cheeky nod to what was surely a big mistake on Nicolas Cage's part? Everybody's talking about Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, but do you know all the stars who helped bring these characters to life? Let's check out the voices behind this kooky cast of characters. Number 1. Puss in Boots just isn't Puss in Boots without Antonio Banderas. Ever since fans first met Puss in Boots way back in 2004 when he made his first ever on-screen appearance in Shrek 2, he's always had that same recognizable voice.
Puss. It would.
You may be surprised to find out that that voice has come a long way since the very beginning. Banderas was originally told to give the character a very little voice. You know, a voice made to fit this little guy. Of course, the Puss in Boots voice we've come to know and love is very different.
For you, baby, I could be.
That's thanks to Banderas, who suggested that the playfulness of a juxtaposition between a big voice and a little cat may add more humor, and everyone involved was a big fan. It's clear that Banderas loves Puss in Boots as much as we do, since he's played the character 5 times over the course of nearly 2 decades. He played Puss in Boots in Shrek 2, Shrek the Third, Shrek Forever After, Puss in Boots, and of course, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Banderas loves how the character has changed over his many years of playing him. He especially enjoyed how Puss in Boots took on a life of his own when he got to strike out on his own, sans Shrek and Donkey. In particular, Banderas loves how his character changed in the most recent movie, citing the scene where he has a panic attack as one of his favorite scenes of all time with Puss in Boots, because of how the character was vulnerable and really human. While he did feel particularly human in that moment, he's still one of our favorite cats. So what about our favorite dog?
Trust me! Easy, you're gonna give yourself a hernia.
Number 2. That would be Perito. Harvey Guillen gave Perito his lovable voice. Since seeing Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, we're pretty sure that you could recognize that voice just about anywhere. But if you weren't familiar with Harvey Guillen before, you might know him as Guillermo de la Cruz from the FX series What We Do in the Shadows. When Guillen was asked to audition for The Last Wish, he actually wasn't too confident that he'd score the role. When he did, he was thrilled and loved bringing Perito to life. Though he calls all that time in the recording studio making his voice so high for the character a workout.
I'm in the mix now. Okay, here we go.
You know what's way easier than a workout, but just as rewarding? Hitting that like button and subscribing to The Things Animated for plenty more videos about your favorite animated content.
Everything okay up there? I'm giving you a thumbs up, just so you know.
Number 3. Harvey Guillen needed to transform his voice to play Perito, and so did Florence Pugh. In fact, her voice is so different when she plays Goldilocks, you may not have even realized it was her.
Have I told a secret? Mama, just drop it, please. Oh.
While Goldilocks has appeared in the video games before, this was her first foray into one of the Shrek franchise's films. And what better way for her to make her first official film appearance than with the voice of Oscar nominee Florence Pugh? If you haven't been living anywhere resembling under a rock as of late, then you know a little bit about the actor's work. From breakout roles like Danny in Midsommar and Amy in Greta Gerwig's Little Women, to a foray into the MCU as Yelena Belova in Black Widow and Hawkeye, Pugh is basically the it girl actor of the moment. So it's only fitting that she made her animated voice acting debut playing the it girl of fairy tales. Speaking of fairy tale characters brought to life, Number 4. We have Jack Horner, who is played by John Mulaney. Little Jack Horner, who sat in a corner eating a Christmas pie, of the nursery rhyme fame, was once a fairly forgettable child who stuck his finger into a pie.
Little Jack Horner sat in the corner eating a Horner pie.
In Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, however, he's more of a ruthless villain.
An evil fairy? Eat the forest then! Put a curse on it!
The character formerly known as Little Jack Horner is now Big Jack Horner, and since his entire rebrand is a joke, it's fitting that he's played by a stand-up comedian. Jack Horner is a great unexpected villain in the film, but there's another villain who we found even scarier. Number 5. That would of course be the wolf, who is so scary that he happens to be death itself.
Lives flashing before your eyes.
If you're wondering how he got that perfectly villainous voice, that would be courtesy of Narcos star Wagner Moura. While he was able to give the movie one serious performance, Wagner Moura says that he had a lot of fun playing the character, even sharing that his kids helped him rehearse. In an interview, Moura shared how much he enjoyed trying different voices to get the perfect takes for each of the character's lines, and he called it like playing. As for his take on the wolf, Moura says he loved the message behind the movie and how his character was such a major catalyst to carrying it out. Wagner Moura may have loved being the voice of the wolf, but he's not the only member of the cast of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish who fell in love with their character. Number 6. Salma Hayek Pinault also has quite a soft spot for her character, Kitty Softpaws.
Softpaws. Kitty Softpaw.
The Oscar, Golden Globe, and Emmy nominee, as well as two-time Emmy winner, was thrilled to reprise the role she originated back in the first Puss in Boots film. And while she had played Kitty Softpaws, Puss in Boots' love interest, once before, that wasn't her first time playing Antonio Banderas' love interest. She shared an on-screen romance with Banderas for the first time in the 1995 film Desperado. The pair also starred in 4 Rooms, Frida, Spy Kids 3D, Game Over, and Once Upon a Time in Mexico together. It's clear that these two iconic actors love working with each other since they're still doing it nearly 30 years later. And as for playing Kitty Softpaws, we have a feeling Salma Hayek Pinault would be working with her for just as long as she'd been working with Banderas if she could.
I wish she could be part of my family of animals.
That said, we have a feeling that not all the members of this star-studded cast would like to keep their characters as pets. Number 7, like Samson Kayo, for example, who plays Baby Bear. Sure, the idea of a baby bear seems like it could be a cute and cuddly pet, but this version is a bit of a bigger and less baby version of Baby Bear.
Sniff him out.
You don't tell me what to do.
He's voiced by Samson Kayo, who you may recognize as Aluwandi from Our Flag Means Death, or Malik in Bloods. And while this was Kayo's first time voicing an animated character, it wasn't his first time acting alongside Antonio Banderas. And it wasn't his first time doing it in an animal-centric movie either. Kayo played a pirate to Antonio Banderas' Pirate King in the 2020 movie Doolittle. Number 8. Baby Bear just wouldn't be Baby Bear without his mama bear.
Listen to your sister, baby.
Oh, she's not my sister.
And in the case of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, Mama Bear is played by none other than Olivia Colman.
Goldie, is this him?
Coleman is a star in any project she graces, which is proven by her impressive award collection, including an Academy Award, 2 Emmy Awards, 3 Golden Globe Awards, a British Academy Film Award, and 3 British Academy Television Awards. She also has a penchant for playing queens, from Queen Elizabeth II in The Crown to Queen Anne in The Favourite. And we think it's only fair that we add Mama Bear to that list. As far as we're concerned, she's a queen in spirit.
Out with it, you old biddy, or I'll have your guts for garters.
Number 9. Of course, Papa Bear is the king to Mama Bear's queen, and that's all thanks to the voice acting of Ray Winstone.
We're looking for the legendary Puss in Boots. Have you perhaps...
Winston is known for playing tough guys, and you may recognize him from his roles in The Departed, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Snow White and the Huntsman, Point Break, or Black Widow, just to name a few of his many roles. He also played a cat in the movie version of Cats, but he opted to go the bear route this time around.
Welcome to my fiesta!
Did you notice all the Shrek references in flashbacks during Puss in Boots' Last Wish? There's even a super quick appearance from Shrek himself. Number 1. Did you catch him? He's the gingerbread man. We loved finding out that the high-pitched cookie from the Shrek franchise was alongside Puss in Boots at the end of one of his lost lives. Number 2. We got our Shrek cameo. Fans were desperate to know if Puss in Boots' Last Wish would feature a cameo from the Green Ogre himself, and it did. A really short cameo.
Really? Let me take a look.
It's just a quick memory of Puss walking over a log with Shrek and Donkey a la The Lion King. A reference within a reference? Amazing. Number 3. Another Shrek universe cameo, no strings attached. Did you love the reveal that Jack Horner performed next to Pinocchio?
Look, a magic puppet! 'Cause I'm a little boy!
It was fun to see the Shrek universe Pinocchio do the iconic Stromboli puppet show, although we've really got more Pinocchio representation than we can handle at this point. Number 4. Okay, now we're pumped. The flashback Shrek cameo was a nod to Shrek and Puss in Boots' shared past.
Oh, come on, Donkey, look at him.
But the final scene confirms that the two will share the screen again in the future.
No one's that nice. I don't trust you.
As Team Friendship approaches the familiar kingdom of far away, Puss literally says,
Off to find new adventures and to see some old friends.
Oh, yeah.
"We are so in." Number 5. She should see a doctor. She's looking kinda green.
Ogre!
The Wicked Witch, who has appeared in the Shrek universe before, is in the waiting area for the doctor as Puss leaves his exam. We don't know what brought her there, but the doctor helped Puss after he was crushed by a giant bell, so maybe he has a good treatment for the house that fell on the witch's sister. Number 6. Poker is going to the dogs. During the 9 Lives flashbacks, we learn that one of Puss's fatal encounters was with a group of poker-playing dogs. The scene is arranged to look like that famous painting, Dogs Playing Poker. Number 7. Not everything is the MCU.
It is one thing to question the official story and another thing entirely to make wild accusations.
Sure, the Shrek universe is pretty expansive and at times almost as convoluted as Marvel. Puss in Boots' Last Wish is a sequel to a prequel that takes place after the sequels that the prequel was a prequel to? If you say so. But if you stuck around through all the credits hoping for another tantalizing glimpse at the future film, you got roasted. Puss just says,
Oh, you're still here?
and isn't that the classic DreamWorks satire you came for? Number 8. We've got chills. The sinister wolf announces himself by whistling a slow, spine-tingling tune. It creeped us out every time we heard it, and it also reminded us of another menacing whistler, Omar from the critically acclaimed show The Wire. Omar actually warned he was coming with something even more appropriate to the world of nursery rhymes and fairy tales, The Farmer in the Dell.
Yo, son, come on, yo, Omar coming, man.
Both whistle tunes now have permanent residence in our nightmares. Number 9. Will he be back? When Jack Horner meets his end, he sinks into the ground, a visual similar to Terminator's final farewell in Terminator 2. This sets up the perfect reference. Arnold famously goes down with an emotional thumbs-up gesture, while Jack Horner is famous for sticking his thumb down into a plum pie. Number 10. How do you like them apples? Toxic-looking apples among the many magical objects in Jack Horner's collection that reference Disney fairy tales.
Hey, Softpaws, how do you like these apples?
These poison apples look specifically like the one the witch concocts in Disney's 1937 version of Snow White. It's kind of incredible that the very first feature-length animated film is still relevant enough to reference in an animated film 85 years later. Number 11. If the shoe fits. Another referential artifact in Jack Horner's office is Cinderella's glass slipper. While he packs for a vengeful journey, he decides to leave the slipper behind. This could be a reference to Cinderella leaving her slipper behind as she fled the ball, or it could just be logistical, because a glass slipper always seemed like wildly impractical footwear. Number 12. This brings us to a whole new world. Aladdin's magic carpet lies on the floor of Jack Horner's office before Puss and Kitty commandeer it. This scene was a fast-paced heist, but we would have loved a brief aside for those two to take a romantic tour of the 7 wonders of the world. Number 13. One snack makes you larger, one snack makes you small. Jack Horner chows down one of the Eat Me, Drink Me treats from Alice in Wonderland to grow to an epic size for the film's final showdown. Number 14. This reference is practically perfect in every way. Clearly, Jack Horner has a lot of magical items referencing fairy tale movies, so how will he pack them all for his quest? Using one last magical item referencing a Disney movie, Mary Poppins' bottomless carpet bag. Can we get one of those? It would save us a lot of money if we never have to check luggage again.
How hilarious was it when the cutest, most innocent animal sidekick is revealed to have an absolutely filthy vocabulary?
Rat face, butt nugget, for brains, you know, that sort of thing.
Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is packed with moments like this that only adults would appreciate.
Let's go find out!
Wait!
Number 1. We once heard a dog's mouth is supposed to be surprisingly clean. That probably wouldn't hold up in lab tests, and it's definitely not true for Perito in Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Perito may seem like the sweetest, most innocent character in this movie.
I don't trust you.
Me neither. He cannot be trusted.
But when push comes to shove, he delivers one of the filthiest lines in the film. Well, at least we assume he does. Every other word is bleeped out, indicating a slew of filthy swear words unfit for a PG audience.
Oafish, munching, minky, nugget, and your snooter.
The presence of implied foul language and the use of the bleep are both things meant mostly for the adults to appreciate. Number 2. Get a load of this. Okay, honestly, we have absolutely no idea what actual words Perito is saying in his bleeped out rant to the Three Bears family. That actually makes it a little tamer, because if we can't figure it out, kids couldn't either. But there's really no question what Kitty Softpaws was about to say before being cut off in this dangerous flower scene.
This is stupid.
All I smell is bullshit.
Little kids might miss that one, but not adults. Although we think this one is really in there for the older kids who get a huge amount of satisfaction from knowing exactly what inappropriate word Kitty was about to say. Congratulations, pre-preteens. Number 3. We'll drink to that. We love it whenever Puss in Boots slides up to a bar and suavely, or sullenly, orders a glass of milk. All of the imaginary language and ensuing antics makes it clear to adult members of the audience that milk for cats in this world functions exactly like alcohol for humans in ours. I mean, this gato is chugging pints, throwing back shots, and in his more vulnerable moments, ordering something high quality just to sip. Kids may have a vague understanding of the concept around drinking alcohol, but specifics like
Another glass of cream. Make it your heaviest.
are jokes tailor-made for the more worldly adults in the audience. Number 4. He had to go there. Goldilocks and Baby Bear do not hold back on their insults for each other. Some of their repartee includes zingers that only adults would really understand. We don't expect kids to understand how cruel and funny it is for Baby Bear to call his adopted sister a low-rent Cinderella.
You're nothing but a low-rent Cinderella.
But for the adults who were listening closely, this sick fairy tale burn is worth the price of admission. Number 5. Some of these plot lines are pretty deep. Kids are sure to enjoy the heist, the quest for the wishing star, and the brilliantly animated slapstick and battles along the way. But the real crux of the film is actually something that might be a little too mature for most youngsters to grasp. At the end of the day, this whole movie is about Puss having a full-on existential crisis.
I'm supposed to be a fearless hero, but without lives to spare, I am nothing.
At one point, he literally buries his old identity and falls into a feline depression. Luckily, he finds that life is still worth living even if his sense of self has evolved. Us grown-ups needed that happy ending after witnessing this heroic kitty spiral. Number 6. Interesting. Can you say more about that? Even if kids understand some of the humor in Purrito's self-identifying as a therapy dog, the truly hilarious line about therapy will only have full impact for adults.
And his therapy dog!
Finally, you need therapy.
Puss getting called out like that by his ex is something that's only funny when you've witnessed the complexities of adult romantic relationships. Number 7. This is a sad state of affairs. Puss's life at Mama Luna's depicts the indignity of Puss's geriatric years with painful precision. Most of the jokes around this topic will go over kids' heads, like Mama Luna's concerns about a health department raid.
You're not from the health department, are you? We better get you inside because, baby, they are always watching.
Number 8. We hope kids aren't encountering this issue with their pediatricians. Doctor/veterinarian/barber/dentist/witch hunter that Puss sees after being crushed by a bell delivers bad news without a ton of finesse. Puss doesn't appreciate this.
You really got to work on your bedside manner.
Bedside manner is not a term most kids are familiar with, so we have to assume this quick dig at the doc made it in the script for the enjoyment of adults. Number 9. These bakers are making buns of steel. When our hilarious and unapologetically evil villain Jack Horner orders his dozen bakers to form a bridge for him, he includes the instructions,
Flex the glutes, I need a solid surface.
That whole concept, including the word glutes, would go over kids' heads. But it's a funny specific to adults, especially with John Mulaney's deadpan delivery. We can totally hear Andrew saying something like this on Big Mouth. Number 10. Get ready to feel old. Young kids who saw Puss in Boots: The Last Wish when it dropped in theaters weren't even born yet when the first Puss in Boots movie came out. And most of their parents were still kids or young teens when Shrek debuted in 2001. How is that possible? We hope that parents have given kids the proper animated film education to prepare them for the references in this movie, like appearances from Gingy and Pinocchio or the Hakuna Matata motif. But if not, those cameos are for mature audiences only. Number 11. Hasta la vista, baby. If you got that reference, then you may have also been among the folks who got the Arnold Schwarzenegger reference in Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Jack Horner's final moment sinking into the ground with thumbs up that he turns into a thumbs down is a reference to the way Arnold's Terminator goes down in Terminator 2: Judgment Day. You know, the 1991 classic that children are intimately familiar with? Yeah, no. This one was definitely for the oldest adults in the audience. Number 12. It all comes down to the wire. Today's youth are all well-versed in HBO prestige dramas of the early 2000s, right? Well, if not, then it was probably only the adults who noticed that the wolf's whistle in Puss in Boots: The Last Wish was referencing Omar's warning call as he stalked the streets of Baltimore in the TV show The Wire. Number 13. Not the bees! Definitely don't think kids were picking up on this meme-fied Nick Cage reference. Actually, most adults probably even missed it. But for those who caught the quick line of the dialogue featuring Baby Bear crying out,
Ow! Not the bees!
Just like Cage's character in the cringe-inducing remake of The Wicker Man, it's an extremely satisfying deep cut. Number 14. Is it Jiminy or Jimmy? The world may never know. Kids will get that this bug is supposed to mirror Jiminy Cricket from Pinocchio, but only adults will notice that his voice seems to be a pitch-perfect impression of actor Jimmy Stewart.
Maybe we need to dig a little deeper. Tell me about your childhood.
Just remember this, Mr. Potter, that this rabble you're talking about.
Whether this was an intentional reference to the fine, upstanding moral characters Stewart was known for portraying, or just a failed attempt to impersonate the voice of Pinocchio's Conchus from the Disney cartoon, we'll never know. But either way, that's a question only adults will be leaving the theater with.
Trust me.
You gotta trust him. Look at those eyes.
A lot has changed since the first Shrek movie came out in 2001, including some details within the Shrek universe. Did you catch everything the Puss in Boots spin-off films changed from the original Shrek movies? We've rounded up the details and you'll want to know them all before Puss in Boots: Last Wish finally debuts later this year. From animation style to fundamental rules of the world, the creators of the Puss in Boots movies have taken some liberties with the details in Shrek. Number 1. You're not just seeing things. If you've noticed that the animation style in the trailers for Puss in Boots 2: The Last Wish looks different from the rest of the Shrek franchise, you're not alone. When Shrek premiered over 20 years ago, animators were eager to showcase just how realistic they could make their on-screen world appear, even if those realistic-looking worlds were comprised of ogres, dragons, talking donkeys, and anthropomorphic gingerbread cookies.
Do you know the Muffin Man?
The Muffin Man?
Now that we know CGI can recreate almost anything in a photorealistic style, animators are taking more stylist liberties to showcase their artistry. Puss in Boots 2 uses 2.5D animation to evoke a storybook effect that perfectly suits our feline hero's fairy tale journey. Number 2. We're dying to know what you think of this one.
You died, Doctor.
The trailer for Puss in Boots' Last Wish kicks off with Puss recalling all the ways he died, and then seemingly immediately came back to life as the exact same cat at the exact same point in his life.
You're supposed to be dead.
But this contradicts a throwaway joke from Puss in Boots' first appearance in Shrek 2. When Puss joins Shrek and Donkey for a heist in the fairy godmother's potion room, Puss brags to his new companions that
One of my 9 lives, I was the great cat burglar of Santiago de Compostela.
This implies that Puss's identity changed with each of his 9 lives, which would completely negate the entire premise of Last Wish.
I have 9 lives. And how many times have you died already?
Number 3. Who's afraid of which big bad wolf? Fans of the original Shrek franchise will remember the big bad wolf still dressed as Red Riding Hood's grandmother who's just looking for a place to take a nap.
What?
Like many of the other Shrek characters, this portrayal, voiced by Aaron Warner, flips our expectations of the classics on their head. But it looks like Puss in Boots creators wanted to take the furry villain in a different direction for Last Wish, because this big bad wolf bounty hunter looks like he wouldn't be caught dead in a nightgown.
Lives flashing before your eyes.
He's also voiced by a new actor, Wagner Moura, so this definitely seems like a big change from the Shrek movies. Number 4. This new look is just right. Surprisingly, Goldilocks does not appear in the original Shrek films. She was cut from the first Shrek movie, but she went on to appear in Shrek video games. The version of Goldilocks we see in the video games looks like a completely different person from the character we'll be introduced to in Puss in Boots' Last Wish. We can't blame DreamWorks for this one. With a voice actor as vibrant and charismatic as Florence Pugh, it makes sense to design a Goldilocks that has a personality all her own.
Goldilocks and the Three Bears crime family.
Number 5. Things are getting dark. A while back, fans noticed a disturbing insinuation made by the first Shrek movie.
You know what I'm saying? Huh?
We see a brief scene with the 3 bears locked in cages. Later they're free, but we only see Papa Bear and Baby Bear. Where's Mama Bear? You may not like the answer. During a panning shot in Lord Farquaad's chambers, we see a bearskin rug, with a pink bow just like the one Mama Bear was wearing. But for Puss in Boots' Last Wish, we know we'll be getting all 3 bears as part of the Goldilocks and the 3 Bears crime family. We can't wait to see how Olivia Colman brings Mama Bear to life. Or back to life. Don't think about it too hard. Things can get complicated after this many movies.
Excuse me, my darling. We're looking for the legendary Puss in Boots. Have you perhaps...
Number 6. Baby Bear's not crying anymore. When Baby Bear appears in a cage during the first Shrek movie, he's the only member of the bear trio to speak.
This cage is so small.
He's voiced by Bobby Block, and his innocent tears just break our hearts. Puss in Boots' Last Wish, on the other hand, features a baby bear that seems more likely to break our legs. In the upcoming film, he'll be voiced by British actor Samson Kayo, and we expect him to have a much bigger role than he did in the Shrek movies. And really, who doesn't want more Baby Bear?
Come on, Donkey, look at him.
Say what?
Hey, you want to see something cool?
Have you seen Puss in Boots: The Last Wish yet? This is one of the best movies of the entire Shrek franchise, and it's definitely in a totally different league than the OG Puss in Boots. Why, you ask? Well, you're about to find out. Fear us, if you dare.
All right, let's get it over with.
Number 1. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish has some surprising depth.
I am afraid.
It's okay to be afraid.
When you hear about a Puss in Boots movie, you certainly aren't expecting something deep. And that was the case with the original Puss in Boots. This one, however, deals with some very adult and very important topics. These characters go through real profound struggles, from loneliness to searching for meaning in life. Sure, at its root, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is a comedy, and it is family-friendly. But it still manages to deal with the concept of mortality and living life to the fullest in meaningful ways. In one scene, Puss even has a panic attack, which makes for a portrayal of real mental health struggles that we don't see very often, especially in a movie that young people will watch.
That is the saddest, funny story I've ever heard.
Number 2. Deeper storylines wouldn't work without a developed cast of characters. The Puss in Boots franchise is, of course, a spin-off of the iconic Shrek franchise. While the Shrek movies are excellent in their own right, they never succeeded particularly well in having a well-rounded cast of characters. While many characters, namely well-known fairy tale characters, were introduced, they rarely got much character development, or even the opportunity for more than just popping in to deliver a one-liner. Overwhelmingly, the Shrek franchise was about, well, Shrek.
There was no room for anyone else.
On the other hand, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish made it clear that the Puss in Boots franchise isn't all about Puss in Boots, and instead there are going to be plenty of personalities filling out the rest of the cast, like Kitty Softpaws, Goldilocks, and the Three Bears, to name a few. Number 3. Speaking of amazing characters, let's talk about Perrito.
I already have a comfy sweater and 2 best friends. I got everything I could wish for.
If you've seen this movie and how much you love Perrito wasn't one of your main takeaways, we highly recommend a rewatch ASAP. Perrito is the ultimate sidekick. A cute little guy with a heart of gold and a total potty mouth makes for the ultimate best buddy. Number 4. Not only did Puss in Boots: The Last Wish give us the perfect sidekick, we also got the best villain in all of Shrek. While many members of this delightful cast of characters are beloved because of how good they are, we love this one because of how bad he is. The wolf is downright scary, and having an actually scary villain only acts to make this movie richer and more interesting.
You are death.
The film does surprisingly have 3 villains, and not only are they all great villains, but they all work together very well. The wolf does, however, stand out as the worst of the bad. Come on, he represents death himself. Doesn't get much scarier than that. As far as we're concerned, the wolf blows Humpty out of the water. Number 5. From the Wolf to Perrito, the A+ cast additions brought these new characters to life. While we love the new characters the film introduced, they'd be nothing without their voice actors. Of course, Puss in Boots just wouldn't be Puss in Boots without Antonio Banderas reprising his role.
I laugh at this!
Salma Hayek Penalt's return as Kitty Softpaws was also a welcome one.
Softpaws. Kitty Softpaws.
Despite beloved returning voice actors, adding A-list actors like Olivia Colman and Florence Pugh filled out the cast even further. And of course, Wagner Moura made the Big Bad Wolf the perfect amount of big and bad.
If it isn't Puss in Boots himself.
And Harvey Guillen made Perrito, well, Perrito. Number 6. The cast may have made these characters sound like themselves, but we have the amazing animation to thank for how they look. Standout, unique animation isn't necessarily what we've come to expect from the Shrek franchise. Yet The Last Wish has definitely exceeded expectations with its visuals. It combines the expected 3D animation with hand-drawn animation. This creates a lot more visual interest, as well as playing into the movie's storybook feel in a way that the franchise's previous movies haven't attempted. Number 7. Speaking of the old storybook feel, like its predecessors, this movie has plenty of fairy tale inspo. The Shrek franchise was known for its parodies of fairy tales, yet if you're a fairy tale fanatic, The Last Wish may be even more up your alley. This movie introduces new fairy tale characters with much more character development and allows us to watch them going through real-life struggles. Goldilocks deals with loneliness and struggling to find where she belongs. Jack Horner from the poem Little Jack Horner deals with his own privilege and greed. It's nice to see these characters included, not just as a cheeky joke, but actually as fully formed characters with much more depth and realism than in their source material. Number 8. You may have heard about Puss in Boots: The Last Wish's incredible accolades. And if you haven't seen the movie, you may have been surprised. The film has a whopping 95% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes and a 94% audience score. It's also nominated for the Best Animated Feature Film Golden Globe and the Oscar. If that's not enough incentive for a Puss in Boots movie night, we don't know what is.
I am Puss in Boots, loved by one and all.
So, how do you think Puss in Boots: The Last Wish stacks up to the rest of the franchise? Let's talk all about it in the comments, and if you love videos like this one about all your animated favorites, be sure to like and subscribe to The Things Animated for more.